And I can start with myself. I am still Timothy Anton Okai, and I am based in TUT, Pretoria West Campus, and I'm the program coordinator for the clinical engineering program at TUT. I was involved in the development of the medical equipment maintenance short learning program. And now we want to start the process of developing the healthcare technology management short learning program, or we can call it a clinical engineering technology management short learning program. And yeah, so let's get others to introduce themselves before we proceed. Perhaps we can start with the elders in the group. So let's start with Terry, and then we go to Mladen, and then others can introduce themselves as well.
Okay, I'm Terry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Long time retired, but still, sort of very interested in clinical engineering. I might say with the last one, with the health technology, that presentation that we had to make, I found it extremely difficult to to perform in front of the camera. Performing in front of people is
much easier.
Much easier.
Mm.
Performing in front of a camera, wow, I found that difficult. And I didn't like the sound of my voice. And anyhow, but here we are. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, Terry was also involved in developing the MEM course that we did. Yeah, I think, Terry, what's important is the content, not necessarily the sound of your voice, as long as content is delivered. But you did very well in that one anyway. So, but welcome. Nice to have you with us. Mladen?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mladen Palutas. I think the fact that I'm coming after Terry means that he's much older than I am. Terry, good to see you after all this time. I started the HTM program, postgraduate diploma at UCT many years ago.
Yeah.
I left in 2016 to join the Department of Health, Western Cape, as Director of Health Technology. And I left the department in 2022, and now I'm freelancing as a consultant. And great to meet you all.
Thank you so much and welcome. So, Nashima Tabeya, you are not necessarily, we're not going by age, but I think you have traveled the farthest from Namibia. So,
thank you very much, Mr. Okai.
Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Tabeya Nashima, and I am the clinical engineer for Ongwediva Medipark. It's a health facility in Namibia. And I am an ex-student of Selina. I can see Selina is here. Hi, Selina. And Mr. Tim Okai.
Thank you for joining us and welcome. Selina, I guess that's your cue to go next.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it's good to hear some of the people that we have interacted with, coming back. So it's good to hear that you are here, Tabeya. My name is Selina. Currently going through, I don't know if it's COVID/flu, whatever the case is. But yeah, not feeling too well, and my car just had a puncture, so I'm in the garage at the moment. I hope I'm audible. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
we can hear you.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So good afternoon, colleagues. As I've mentioned, I'm Selina. I joined TUT as a part of the lecturing staff. So I work together with Mr. Okai since 2020, late 2020. Before that, I've worked for companies like Stryker and Philips, and I also worked a bit at LeanMed, Netcare LeanMed in Benoni. So I'm now lecturing under clinical engineering, and I've also worked with Mr. Okai on the SLP for medical equipment maintenance. And yeah, I think I've dealt with almost everyone here. The only person I haven't met physically is Mr. Mladen, sorry. But I've heard a lot about you, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Selina, my colleague in TUT. Okay, let's hear from Freddie.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
My name is Freddie. I was Mr. Okai's student. I've also at some point was Terry's student. So the link comes together again. And nice to see everyone again, Selina and Mr. Bob Kasande Merime. And Mladen, I've met Mladen a couple of times. I'm not sure if he remembers me. I'm not a rememberable person. So I'm glad to be here. I'm currently with a company called Ecomet Medical. I've been with them for 7 years now. Previously worked for a hospital group called Netcare as a technical manager there and also as a clinical engineer. Also for several other companies. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you.
And we come a long, long way with Freddie, both Freddie and Terry. In those days when Calaf was around and we used to, even Mr. Poluta as well, you know, when we used to do the MEM and HTM courses face-to-face in different places in those days. So we've really come a long way. So now let's hear from Mary May and then Bob Kasamba.
Hi. Remember, I just run from theater where I was still busy with one or two things. I currently work in Life Healthcare Hospital in the Pretoria East area. Been working as a clinical engineer for, I think, over 10 years now. With many here in the chat, we go back from 2012. Yeah, many familiar faces. So looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Welcome, Erime. Let's hear from Bob. And I think Katuchelo says she just joined us. So after Bob, then we'll go to Katuchelo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Kasamba. Also former Mr. Okai's student at TUT. Currently, I am clinical engineer at Life Eugene Marie Hospital in Pretoria. Familiar faces, Merime, Mr. Okai, good to see you, and Selina and Freddie. Mr. Mladen and Terry, I've heard of you, seen you, read your names in papers and all that things to do with clinical engineering, and also seen you in a couple of conferences where you've had to speak. I'm glad to be part of this and excited for the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And last but not the least, Katuchelo has joined us. She joined us Blissful Life. She is an author and a life coach.
Hi, everyone. I hope you
on top of
can you hear
everything
me?
else she does. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so my name is Katu. In full, it's Katu Chero. I currently work for the Netcare Group at the Medicross division as the divisional technical manager. I worked as a clinical engineering technician for about 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, before I got promoted. And I'm Mr. Okai's previous student. I started with him, I think, in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, until I graduated. I've worked with Bob. I've worked with Mary May. We were in the same class. And yeah, I think those are the two familiar faces that I know. The rest I haven't really seen, but I've heard of them. But yeah, it's great to be here, and I hope we'll do great things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katuchelo, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for taking time to join this meeting. So just to explain the purpose for this meeting, I privately discussed with some of you to say we are in the process of developing a HTM short learning program. About this, I've had previous meetings with Mr. Mladen Poluta. We've been meeting, and we felt it's now time to bring others on board, because this is not something for one or two people alone to do. There was someone also who was involved in these discussions in the past, Mr. Nietlin. What's his first name again? I remember the surname Nietlin from BioWorld. Some of you may know him, and he's also quite experienced in HTM at a high level. But I want us to start small, and then we will get to high level. And what I have in mind is, because HTM is wide, HTM is broad, HTM is deep. So we're not just going to have one HTM SLP, or short learning program. So we may have something like HTM1, HTM2, HTM3, but we want to start from somewhere. And so I felt, let's bring together some people in the field who are clinical engineering technicians, clinical engineering managers, and with all of our experience, and putting together the experience of Terry and Mladen, who has taught in Cape Town for so many years in this field. I felt we have a good team that we can come together, brainstorm, and talk about the way forward. Last week, I was explaining to Mr. Mladen the processes involved in developing a short learning program in TUT, and the layer upon layer upon layer of approval stages we have to go through, and the number of documents and documentations that need to be put together to have an SLP, or short learning program, approved. It's quite a lot. It's a process. But the first stage is to bring together experts like you and I to say, okay, this is what we want to do. Like going back to when we started the medical equipment maintenance short learning program with the guys in Germany, we got a lot of help from them. They brought in experts. Terry was involved. Selina was involved. Katuchelo was involved. Freddie was involved, and a few others. And so they brought in several experts, and we had several meetings. So learning from what we did when we were developing that short learning program, I think one of the first stages is to bring together experts in this field who are versed in health technology management to say, okay, what are the duties of someone who is a healthcare technology manager? What are what would be like, what would a typical day be like? What are some of the skills or the tools or the knowledge sets that will be required for someone in this field to function? And if we are to put together a short learning program, what would be some of the topics that would meet the needs of people in this field? What are the topics that would sell? What kind of knowledge should they have in order to function as healthcare technology managers? So that's the reason why we said, okay, let's bring together some of the experts in this field so that we can brainstorm together and come up with some of if we understand the job description, and then we know what are the gaps and what are the knowledge they need to have, what are the skills that can adequately equip those who are healthcare technology managers to function effectively in their field. So before we start brainstorming, perhaps since I've had a few meetings with Mr. Mladen Poluta, I would like him to come in here as well.
Yeah, thanks, Timothy. I think you've set the scene very well. I mean, there are some known frameworks that one could use for what health technology management entails. And we can share some of those. Maybe if we set up a Google Drive or something, we can share some of those. But just very briefly, it would go from just let me go to this, sorry. Things like needs assessment and planning, budgeting, regulations and standards, then technology acquisition, including procurement, then maintenance management, performance management, and then managing the department. So both the people, the finances, information management is quite important now, increasingly important, and then some generic risk and project management. So kind of in a nutshell, those are the main areas that I see would be applicable.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And like I said, this field is quite broad, which is why I think we can divide it into HTM1, HTM2, and so on. And in addition to the ones he has mentioned, I had also mentioned in a previous meeting we had with him, things like medical device recall, medical equipment acquisition / replacement, medical device nomenclature and classification, service provider management, medical device audit and hazard management, including topics on ethics for clinical and biomedical engineering practitioners, some kind of code of practice. So these are just suggestions. And I know that especially for some of you who are in the field, I know that quite a number of times I've had to talk with Nashima Tabeya, who works in Namibia. And from her experience, I know that she will have some topics that might be regarded as pertinent. Same with Katuchelo and Freddie and Bob and Merime and the others as well. So, of course, Terry has been in the Department of Health for so many years and with all his experience, and also the fact that he's been involved in this type of training in the past that we've been having with Mr. Kalaf and also Dr. Kalaf. You know, so but let's hear from you guys what you think, especially for those of you who are managers in hospitals and so on.
Hi, Mr. Okai.
Yes, Freddie, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think Mr. Mladen has actually put the topic quite nicely.
Yeah.
I think the starting point, as you rightfully said, would be to actually gather information on the job description of what these people do.
Yeah.
Now, the topic, I think, because now the intention is to actually get whoever is going to do the course to have knowledge that is directly applicable.
Yes.
So the aim is not to to overwhelm them with information that is not going to be directly applicable. So we have to be very specific in terms of under those topics, in terms of the information that we need to put in based on experiences of the panel here. So my suggestion would be to start from everyone else with what they go through, like you say, every kind of, every day in terms of duties, responsibilities, and so on. And from there, we'll be able to deduct specifically information that we need to focus on. Maybe there will be adds on here and there, but I think based on experience of each one of us and
Yeah.
practical experience, it would be beneficial for us to start there. That's my 2 cents worth for now.
Thank you, Freddie. So coming back to you, Freddie, would you like to share with us from your experience some of the duties and responsibilities, and consequently some of the knowledge sets or skill sets that you think a course like this should address, such that those who finish this course would be adequately equipped and prepared to practice in the field? I understand also that there may be some overlap with the medical equipment maintenance course because they are somewhat related. So there could be one or two, a few overlaps. That's understandable. But yeah, let's start with you, Freddie, and then we'll make a list, and then others can share their thoughts as well.
I think, Mr. Okai, to start with, sorry, I'm just gonna be speedballing from the top of my head. I don't have anything in front of me. All right. So the I think depending where you are, I think like I said, we have I would call our panel a multidisciplinary panel based on the different areas where we occupy. So where I am, the important thing is basically management of staff. I don't know where we go into. We can go on and on about that, and when we go into details, it's basically management of staff. And the other thing that is of importance is regulations and standards, like your ISO 60601 and so on. So those are one of those standards that have to be one of the common things in the course for people who will be dealing with medical equipment. And the regulations, the SAPRA regulations should be part of that course. It needs to be as practical as possible, like I said. And once one has from a hospital perspective, obviously there will be other regulations in play. We'll see which ones would be, really important for this course to be, holistic from both the private side and, private as in supplier side, hospital groups, and basically public sector as well. So we'll just have to see what is important in those areas to be included and practical for guys to know. And besides the standards, I think Mladen mentioned things like procurement, inventory management. That would be inventory management of your equipment, and the nomenclatures that has to be used. It will be dependent on one group to the other, whether it's public, private, whatever. So that has to be one of the important things that needs to be addressed. Currently, as we know, we don't really have much of a uniform or standard way of nomenclature. I'm not sure. I'm standing to be corrected, Mladen, if you can come in there. And those are the pertinent things that needs to be included. And also the life cycle management of your equipment, what should be done and so on. So I might be missing some of the things. Maybe my colleagues can come in there.
Okay, thank you, Freddie. So far, I have, from what you have mentioned, management of staff, standards and regulations, procurement, which also covers medical equipment acquisition, and let's put / replacement as well. then inventory management, medical device nomenclature, then life cycle management. Okay. Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you.
Yes, Merime.
Just first thing to agree that when I heard about the topic, I was very convinced that this cannot be done on one course. So I was very impressed or very happy when you said that it could be break down into healthcare technology management 1, 2, and 3. And I think Freddie have said a mouthful, because when sitting where we are, the few things that came straight in my mind when I was brainstorming during the day is exactly the financial management and the cost analysis put involved. In our case, we work a lot with that, with the cost to ownership. And equipment is not always, we cannot only stick to its purchase value. We need to take into consideration, or we need to teach, or the healthcare technology needs to understand that it's not only at purchase. You don't only consider its purchase value, but also the maintenance cost and then possible breakdown throughout the life cycle. Obviously, Freddie also mentioned the life cycle of the equipment, which we need to understand from the interest we have to an equipment all the way to the disposal, which also include e-waste and medical electronic waste that need also to be included. I also like when you mentioned SAPRA, because I mean, I'm very pleased that we all think the same. SAPRA and the governance, we need also to understand, to own a imaging system, what is it that is required from the governance point of view, and what is it that is also required for an end user point of view. We're talking about the lead apron, the shield glass, the door, all of that need to be included, and the healthcare technology student, management student need to be able to understand all of those things that we will believe to be little, but if there is such a brilliant panel to discuss, it's probably to highlight those things that could be gone unnoticed. At this stage, yeah, I probably reiterate what Freddie said, but those were actually things that I was also thinking of.
Thank you, Mary May. So you mentioned financial management, which includes cost analysis, or in essence, total cost of ownership.
Total cost of ownership. I think there, sorry, Mr. Oka, we can also include return on investment. Some equipment are approved by the funders. Here we talk about our medical aid, and those equipment can be reimbursed. For each procedure done on a patient, the medical aid can refund. So not all equipment is just buy and use. Some equipment you buy, you use. For each usage, you get your money back. So those are the first part of cost analysis. Yes.
Okay, return on investment. Okay, then you also mentioned e-waste management, and then SAPRA and governance.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Merime. Okay, let's come back to Mr. Poluta. Can you just mention again the topics, because I didn't write down while you were listing them, so we can just list them.
The ones that have not been mentioned are performance management and information management.
Okay.
And there's also risk management, which includes, testing, calibration, adverse events, investigations. So I think those three. Also needs assessment. I'm not sure how relevant it is for colleagues in the call, but one would think that needs assessment and planning and budgeting are also very important.
Yeah. So I have performance management, information management, risk management, which includes testing, calibration, adverse events management, etc., etc. Then needs assessment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and planning. Going with that.
Needs assessment and planning. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Timothy.
you. Yeah. Okay, so let's hear from others. At this stage, we're just brainstorming, just collecting ideas. We're going to sift through and
Hello?
maybe refine possibly in another meeting. Yes, Katu, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to what the rest have said.
Yeah.
On the finance side of things, just add also depreciation of equipment,
Okay.
because I think that's also important. And then on the governance side of things is development of policies and procedures.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I felt maybe we need to add. That's missing.
Okay, so you've mentioned on the finance side, depreciation of equipment, and then on the development side, policies and procedures.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
So sorry, Mr. Okai.
Yes.
Just to add a bit,
Yeah.
that you just reminded me of something. On the standards also, because SAMPRA is introducing 13485 for South African suppliers. They need to actually be compliant, or well, I think the right word is to be compliant with ISO 13485. So I think that has to be included as a brief discussion that needs to be had. I mean, that needs to be taught on the course, because there's issues where traceability is concerned, and which is a major part of this whole thing. And for health technology management, in terms of traceability, that I think is one thing that needs to be outlined properly and understood well, what the requirements are and what needs to be done for one to be compliant on that. Thank you.
Okay, so that falls under standards and regulations.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Freddie. Okay, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Okai.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
I think when Mr. Mladen mentioned, like when he started talking at the beginning, he did mention something to do with ethics and Popeye Act, because you, being an healthcare technology manager, you will also be dealing with patient information, equipment with patient information, which is something very big. So we also need to sort of, this will probably be categorized under risk management.
Yeah.
So an healthcare technology manager should also just be able to have a risk be able to do a risk assessment in terms of equipment that has patient information stored in on how you should handle that. More specifically, when it comes to you having to let an external person to access that equipment, or having to have to send it out for repair or something like that, how would you have to go about it and manage that to minimize the risk of the information to be accessed by anyone?
Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, because a lot of these devices store patient data, especially now when you're looking at this e-health and this new system implemented by Netcare, where all the data is accessible to the doctors and nurses and all that through the computer. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Bob. Risk management of equipment that have the patient data in it. So that's also part of ethics and goes along with POPI Act. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Okay, I just thought of something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could I come in here a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead, Terry. Yes.
Okay. You know, when I worked at Pretoria Academic Hospital for many years, and when it comes to buying or purchasing equipment, there's quite amount of planning that is necessary in terms of the age of especially very expensive equipment like CT scanners and anesthetic machines and what ICU equipment and that sort of stuff. That in terms of the budget, planning is very important. You can't buy everything, or you can't wait for something to break down and then suddenly you have to buy it. You must know what the age of your equipment is and what the lifetime is, and you've got to plan for replacement.
Yeah.
I found at the hospital there wasn't a lot of what you might call new equipment. In other words, equipment that doesn't exist in the hospital, and then now you're buying something that the hospital has never had before. This happens occasionally, but most of the time it is replacing equipment that's getting old, or when there's new technology available, and there's a lot of planning to be done. I'm not quite sure in the private sector whether you write specifications and you go out on tender, but certainly in the public sector and the government hospitals, you've got to know the tender procedure. How to buy equipment, and a very important part of that is who you buy it from. You have to assess the suppliers of equipment, whether they can supply good quality equipment, and whether they can provide maintenance and spares over the lifetime of the equipment. So that's all sort of planning. So health technology planning is probably part of health technology management. And then one other thing I think would be quite important for people learning what they need to do in health technology management is the procedures in the hospital for repair of equipment. When something breaks down, there's paperwork. Who do you call? Who comes out? Do you go to the ward? Does the equipment go to the workshop? Do you have a workshop? Is your workshop properly equipped? Do you have spares? There's a lot of procedures and paperwork, especially now if you receive in your workshop equipment from a ward and you can't repair it. Now you have to send it to these suppliers, or order spares from the supplier, and there's all sorts of paperwork involved to keep track of the equipment and to keep track of the money involved in doing that. And I think that's something that we need to to put in the course one way or another.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Terry. And if I'm to condense all of that into, say, 3 topics, one would be equipment replacement planning. And then the other one would be like managing service provider management, like managing outside service providers who come in to look after your equipment when it's due for service or when it needs repair, especially when it's still under warranty. And the third one would be the procedure for the repairs and for preventive maintenance. In other words, we can say preventive and corrective maintenance management and all the procedure that is involved, including all the paperwork and how to manage all of that. Would that be right, Terry? Did I miss anything? Okay, I don't hear Terry, so I assume that I captured that correctly.
Mr.
Okay.
Okay, I'm struggling a lot with the network. Yeah,
Okay.
we've been having a power outage since morning, so I keep on dropping and I keep on missing the conversations. But I
Okay.
think you summarized it fine, at least the bits that I heard from Mr. Terry. And I
Yeah.
think on the first point, he also brought up the issue of standardization, because that also plays a huge role in the hospitals in terms of who are the suppliers of certain equipments. Then, you know, if everything is standardized, I don't know also how far we can push that. People like your Mary May and Bob, the guys in hospitals might have a better view on that. But then if, you know, we get some sort of standardization, that helps also with our service provider liaison. Because you know that for this, we have this person. If it's faulty, we go to this person. Everyone is trained on that equipment and so forth. So they can add to that. Thank you.
Okay, so standardization of equipment.
Yeah, I think
okay.
that's very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've
Okay.
captured that as well. Yeah.
Okay, I had a few, hi everyone again. I had
Yeah.
some few points written down before this. I was very, very excited when Mr. Okai contacted me. I was like, thank you so much. And I'd like to appreciate you on that. But most of the things were actually covered. I think the South African space of clinical engineering is actually in a better headspace. Like you guys have pioneers, people that have already set situations for you guys. However, coming from where I'm coming from, I'm just going to talk about some of my experiences that I have actually encountered that I feel like maybe we need to cover. During the course, sorry? During the whole course, it's more like a general thing, but I will.
Yes.
You can't hear me.
No, we can. We can.
I can hear you.
But don't worry, I'm recording it. So what will happen after the meeting, I'm going to upload it somewhere and post the link. I will create a WhatsApp group. So if you miss anything, you can go through the recording again and catch up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the most thing that actually some of the panel actually mentioned is ethics and conducts, which is very, very important. And then also, I think a little bit of soft skill, how to interact with people, because, you know, in this environment, a lot of people are under a lot of pressure. It's just from my own experience. You find doctors that are really, I remember Selena actually warned us, like some doctors are very, you know, so I had to experience that for myself. And maybe we just need to warn people and tell people, like, how do you handle such a situation that you don't get into an altercation with the end users, and you just need to keep your calm. Selena has actually warned me, and I really appreciate that. I had to witness it firsthand. And then the other thing is education and training. That's what I've actually experienced the most. People, like in my country, people do not understand what's the role of a clinical engineer. And when I went in, I just dived in. So there was a bit of resistance there. So people didn't understand what's your role, because now you have to break into the whole new system and try to change things around, or from how you're going to be acquiring equipment, your replacement plan, like Mr. Terry actually mentioned. He actually said it's very important that we manage the procurement and the acquisition, basically the life cycle of the equipment, because if we don't manage that, it means we will be making money, for example, in the hospital. However, we'll be losing money at the same time because we're not managing it. Because before, people were just like procuring equipment, they don't look at the after sales services. So we just need to, when you're coming in, for example, as a health technology management, we also need to look at like areas where there's no foundation set, basically, on how we're going to educate people on that. And also maybe training in terms of, because some areas, they have like high turnover, employment turnover, because sometimes some of the equipment, if let's say we have maybe top of the range equipment in that hospital, and this specific nurse or doctor, okay, not doctor, but nurse, is coming from a different hospital. So we also need to establish who's going to be offering training. Do we have to be calling people in to do training and all that? I don't know if I'm making sense. And also infection control. How are we going to control the infection? If the equipment has to be removed from a ward, maybe for repair, who is responsible to make sure that, all that? I'm just talking from a point of where I am now. I don't know if I'm making sense. And then
Yes, go ahead.
And then the other one is drafting up of specification sheet or requirement when we are procuring an equipment. Because for me personally, I'm having a bit of a challenge, because we have, like, especially when you're based in the hospital, because you also don't want to be, you want the procurement process to be fair. So you don't also want it to be based off of a specific brand. You need to be set up a standard. As if we're looking at patient monitors, what are the specification, the minimum specification?
We can hear you. We can hear you, Terry. But don't worry, we're recording. If your network is giving problems, when I upload the recording, I'll create a link so that you can revisit and re-listen again in case you miss anything. Go ahead, Tabea.
Yeah, the most important is like specification sheet. Yeah, and I think also maybe getting to detail on how we can report on adverse events, all that. Yeah, but I think so far, I think also just the most important is just to emphasis on the documentation. How does the document look like? Because having to draft up the thing yourself, like that document on your own, and you're like alone, it's a bit of it's quite a stressful situation. I'm just going off of my experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Natsuma Tabea. So far, I captured issues around customer relations and interpersonal relationship with other members of the healthcare team, and then education and training, which also incorporates the role of, say, clinical engineering technicians or biomedical engineering technicians, whatever they're called, where you are. Then the equipment lifecycle management, and also infection control and things that have to do with decontamination of equipment. Yeah, decontamination, that's the word, okay? Then drafting of specification sheets, especially for the purposes of procurement and when you have to put it out for tender, right? And then adverse event reporting and management. Yeah, so that's what I've captured.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What else? I think also, I think you guys have also mentioned it. And also, I think we also need to maybe draft up the roles and the responsibility. Where does our role start and where does it end? Because
Okay.
we also don't want to overstep into people's roles and then, because I have incidences where we were like, okay, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that will be covered under the clinical engineering code of practice, like the way we did it in the MEM course. We kind of looked at the code of practice for doctors, the code of practice for nurses, the nursing code of ethics. Then we looked at those of the clinical engineering and biomedical engineering, clinical engineers to biomedical engineers. So if you now know what the doctor's supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do, what you're supposed to do, then it kind of helps you to know your limits, right? I can go this far and no further. And the nurse cannot ask me to do this because according to my code of practice, I'm not supposed to do that, right? So
Yeah.
it falls under that as well. But thank you for mentioning it.
Okay. I had something on the top of my mind, but when I remember, I'll just pop up again.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think everyone has spoken and made meaningful contributions. And I do not intend for this meeting to be too long because I want it to be like a weekly meeting, no more than an hour. We can't talk about everything now. For today, we're just brainstorming and just collecting all of these ideas. Perhaps when we meet again next week, we can now try to refine, we can sift, we can refine, we can categorize, we can select, and perhaps we can now say, okay, maybe we will have, instead of HTM1, HTM2, HTM3, we can have introduction to HTM, then maybe intermediate HTM and advanced HTM, something like that. But these are just my thoughts and ideas. Yes, Bob.
Mr. Okai, sorry, before I didn't want to forget. I don't remember if we did mention, I think we should maybe also consider as a health technology manager, you also need to be aware of what it is an audit, like you being audited.
Okay.
And what kind of audit should you expect and how should you go about it?
Okay. 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 So, yeah, I know in most of the private hospitals and clinics, they do auditing. So what is involved in auditing? How should you prepare from your side for that auditing process? Yeah, I think that's important. Okay. Great.
And sorry.
Yes.
And also maybe we also need to come to an agreement also to say, remember, Mr. Okai, I called you because some of the equipments were procured and they have like zero utility rates. How do we handle a situation like where we have an equipment that has zero utility rates? Do we manage it? Do we not manage it? And all that. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Managing equipment with zero utility rate. They just sitting there. There's no one using them, right?
Yes, call them white elephant.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that also ties in with what Bob said, to do actually audits of medical equipment, to do surveys of how much equipment is being utilized, how much, what percentage is waiting for repair, what equipment is in good condition, not being utilized in a particular area or department, it could be reallocated. So I think those are important to be able to know what your asset base is doing and whether it's being optimally utilized.
Okay, so it falls under medical device audits, right?
Yes, yes.
Medical device
yes.
audits.
Yes.
Okay, great.
The broader heading, I think, would just be asset management.
Asset
that you're
management.
managing your assets optimally.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Asset management. Okay.
Tim, colleagues, sorry, I need to drop out. I've got another meeting that started at 5. But thank you so much. This has been great brainstorming, Tim. Well done.
Thank you.
And great to meet you all, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes, and I think it would be a good place to wrap up as well, but you can leave Mr. Mladen. I wouldn't want us to go further, so that we can do we agree that we can meet again same time next week?
Good for me.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that we can start refining and categorizing and maybe go a little bit deeper into the session we've had so far. But I'm going to upload the recording somewhere, and I'll just create a WhatsApp group and I'll post the link in the WhatsApp group. So if you need to go over again and listen again or watch again, then at least you'll be able to do that. But thank you all so much, colleagues, for giving the time to be here for us to brainstorm on this important topic. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. And if you want to stay on and chat further, maybe catch up with some colleagues you haven't seen for a while, I'll leave the meeting open, but I will just stop the recording. So I'll leave the meeting open maybe for another 5-10 minutes, depending on how long you wish to stay. But let me end the recording here.